He was about to lose a $100 million deal until a black girl spoke fluent Japanese and saved everything. The restaurant was upscale, private, and quiet, the kind of place where deals worth fortunes were sealed over glasses of wine and signed contracts. The CEO, David Reynolds, had flown in from New York to close a make-or-break deal with one of the most powerful Japanese investors in tech. Everything was riding on this moment: $100 million, 5 years of planning, and the future of his entire company. But when his interpreter called in sick last minute, David thought he could bluff his way through. Bad idea. The moment Mr. Tanaka arrived, with his sharp suit and dead serious expression, David's confidence cracked. Tanaka spoke only Japanese. David? Not a word. He tried small talk, blank stare, tried hand gestures, awkward silence. The tension grew by the second. The waiter stood frozen. Papers sat untouched. David started sweating through his shirt. The deal was collapsing fast. That's when, from 2 tables away, someone spoke fluent, perfect Japanese. A little girl, 10 years old, braided hair, gray t-shirt, eyes locked onto the conversation. Everyone turned. David stared. And then, with zero hesitation, she stood up, walked over, and sat down between them. For a moment, no one moved. Mr. Tanaka blinked, confused. David looked like he'd seen a ghost. But the little girl, her name was Amira, leaned forward, calm as anything, and began translating. Her voice? Steady. Her tone? Respectful, precise, flawless. Not just fluent, native-level fluent. She wasn't guessing. She was commanding the conversation. Mr. Tanaka's expression shifted from suspicion to curiosity, then something closer to surprise. Amira nodded as she listened, then turned to David and said, in crisp English, "He wants to know why you haven't responded to his last proposal." David stumbled, flustered. Tell him we agree. Yes, we accept." Amira nodded and related. Tanaka raised an eyebrow, then smiled barely. For the first time since arriving, David nearly collapsed in relief. He couldn't believe what was happening. He didn't even know who she was. "Whose kid are you?" he whispered. Amira glanced back toward a nearby table where her parents sat, a quiet black couple who hadn't even noticed yet. She turned back, folded her hands, and said, "Today, I'm your interpreter. Don't blow it." But things were just getting started, and someone wasn't happy. At first, Mr. Tanaka was clearly skeptical. His glances toward David were curt, and every time Amira spoke, he'd study her like he was waiting for her to mess up. But she didn't. Not once. She matched his formal tone, honored cultural etiquette, and even corrected David gently when he said something that could have come off wrong. Slowly, Tanaka's posture softened. He started speaking faster, more freely, testing her fluency. Amira kept up without flinching. Then something shifted. Tanaka leaned forward and asked Amira a question not for David, but for her. A personal one. "Where did you learn Japanese like that?" She paused, then smiled. "My grandfather. He taught me every day after school. He said language is respect." Tanaka nodded slowly. A small silence followed. Then he laughed. Not loud, but real. David looked stunned. The man who was seconds away from walking out was now sipping tea and cracking a smile. That's when David realized this deal wasn't going to happen because of him, it was happening because of her. But just as things were turning around, a manager approached their table and asked Amira to leave. The restaurant manager's tone was clipped, fake polite. "Sir," he said to David, ignoring Amira completely, "we can't allow children to interrupt business meetings. I'll have her return to her table." David opened his mouth to protest, but froze. Amira, calm as ever, turned to Mr. Tanaka and translated the manager's words. Tanaka's smile vanished. He placed his teacup down with a sharp clink. Then, in Japanese, he asked, "Is she being removed? Because she's a child? Or because she's black?" Amira didn't flinch. She translated every word, voice steady. The manager's face tightened. "That's not what I said," he stammered. "This just isn't appropriate." Amira looked at David. David stood up. "She's my interpreter," he said firmly. "She's staying." But it was too late. Mr. Tanaka was already standing. The air was heavy. For a second, David thought everything was about to crash. Then Amira spoke in flawless, rapid Japanese directly to Tanaka. A single sentence. Short, powerful. Tanaka looked at her, then nodded, sat back down. "She may stay," he said in English, but his expression was serious now. He looked at David and said, "Let's continue, but this deal now has conditions." David's pulse spiked. Conditions? He wasn't ready for that. He glanced at Amira, who gave him a look that said, "Stay calm." Tanaka spoke again, slow, deliberate. "Your company's numbers are strong, but we've had doubts. Doubts about leadership. Doubts about integrity." Amira translated every word cleanly, never inserting her own opinion. David tried to respond, fumbling through a rehearsed pitch, but Tanaka raised a hand. "Enough," he said, then looked at Amira. "I want to hear her opinion. Does she believe in your company?" The room went still. Amira blinked. For the first time, she hesitated. David looked stunned. "She's just a kid," he started. Tanaka didn't even look at him. "She sees you clearly," he said. "That is enough." Amira sat up straighter. Her voice was quiet at first, but every word cut deeper than a corporate statement ever could. "He's not perfect," she said. "He wasn't prepared, but he listens. And when things go wrong, he doesn't blame others, he tries to fix it. That means something." Tanaka studied her, unreadable. Then he asked, "And would you stake your name on that?" Amira nodded. "Yes, I just did." Tanaka leaned back, eyes narrowing. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He was calculating. And then he said something no one expected. "You remind me of my daughter." Amira looked surprised. "She passed last year," he added, voice quieter now. "Only 13. She was teaching me English. Said it would help me do business in America." A long silence followed. The room wasn't just quiet, it felt heavy. For the first time, David realized this meeting wasn't about leverage or power. It was about trust, pain, something real. Amira bowed her head slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said softly, in perfect Japanese. Tanaka nodded, barely. Then he turned back to David. "Here's my condition," he said. "I will sign your deal if this girl is on your team. Not as a mascot, not as a face, as your translator, your bridge, your promise." David stammered. She's 10. Tanaka stared him down. "So?" Amira didn't speak. She just looked at David, waiting. And at that moment, he had to choose. Go the safe route or bet everything on the girl who just saved him. David swallowed hard. Everything in his business training told him to say no, to find a loophole, to politely decline and move on. But everything in his gut told him this moment was bigger than a contract. He looked at Amira not as a child, but as the only person in the room who truly understood what was happening. "If she agrees," David said slowly, "then yes, she's on the team." Tanaka nodded, satisfied, then turned to Amira. "Do you agree?" She paused, then said it clearly, "Yes, but only if I get to bring my own terms." Tanaka raised an eyebrow. David nearly choked. "And what are your terms?" Tanaka asked. Amira straightened her back. 1, you respect me like any adult in the room. 2, I work after school and on weekends only. 3, you both donate to a language program at my school. Dead silence. Then suddenly Tanaka burst out laughing. A deep, full laugh. "You are your grandfather's granddaughter," he said. He reached across the table and extended his hand. Not to David. To her? "Then we have a deal." But the world outside that room was about to react, and not everyone would be happy. By the next morning, it was everywhere. A photo had been taken grainy, but clear. A little black girl sitting at a table between 2 powerful businessmen, one of them bowing slightly as he shook her hand. Someone leaked the story to the press. The headline spread like wildfire. 10-year-old girl saves $100 million deal with Japanese investor. At first, the public loved it. Amira was hailed as a prodigy, a genius, a hero. News outlets called her school. Talk shows reached out to her parents. But then, the backlash started. Comment sections flooded. Why is a child doing corporate business? Is this even legal? Publicity stunt. Affirmative action gone too far. And worse. Much worse. David's inbox filled with furious emails, investors worried about image, partners calling the deal reckless. Even some staff inside his own company whispered that she was just a lucky kid. Amira stayed quiet. Let the noise roll past her. But the damage was starting to show. Her parents were worried. The school called for a meeting. And Tanaka? He watched from overseas, waiting to see how David would handle the storm he never saw coming. David stood at the podium, heart pounding, facing a packed press room. Cameras flashed. Every reporter wanted the same thing: a statement, a cleanup, a walk back. "Mr. Reynolds," one shouted, "are you confirming a child is now employed by your company?" Another chimed in, "Are you exploiting her talent for profit?" He started to speak, then stopped. He didn't know how to defend something that shouldn't need defending. Then, to everyone's surprise, a small voice interrupted from the side of the stage. Amira stepped forward, calm, composed, and holding a folded sheet of paper. She looked out at the crowd. "You all keep asking if I'm too young," she said. "But none of you asked how many languages I speak, or why no one else at that table could do what I did." The room fell silent. "If I had been a white boy in a suit, you would have called me gifted," she said. "Instead, you call me a stunt." She folded her paper. "I'm not a mascot. I'm not a miracle. I'm prepared." Then she walked off the stage. David watched her go, stunned. And in that moment, he realized she didn't need his protection. He needed hers. Weeks passed. The noise died down, but the ripple didn't. Amira's story became more than a headline. It became a movement. Schools reached out asking to start language programs. Parents wrote letters saying their daughters finally saw someone who looked like them doing something extraordinary. David's company? Stronger than ever. The deal with Tanaka had opened global doors. But more importantly, respect doors. Not just for Amira, but for what she represented. One afternoon, Amira received a package at her house. No return label. Inside was a hand-carved wooden box, wrapped in silk. A note rested on top, in calligraphy, "From one bridge to another." Inside the box, her grandfather's name, engraved in Japanese, alongside hers. A gift from Tanaka. That night, she sat quietly at her desk, opened a textbook, and began learning Mandarin. Her parents watched from the hallway, speechless. Because Amira wasn't just special for what she did that day. She was special for what she was about to become. And the world was finally watching. But this time, on her terms. If that ending gave you chills, hit subscribe, because stories like Amira's deserve to be told louder and longer.